Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our virtual fireside chat on the future of entertainment. We're just going to wait a couple seconds here, allow everyone to get settled, to get dialed in, and we'll get started with our conversation here. It's going to be exciting because Doug, you are, just for those that are here early and getting settled, you're in Hawaii.
Greetings from Kona.
In paradise, getting ready for this conversation. You didn't have to go to Hawaii for the chat. It's all good.
Well, you always want to keep it interesting, keep it light.
Of course, of all people, you're the king of that. I love it. Do it a little different. Looks like we got folks still coming in, so we'll get started for time's sake. So excited about today's conversation. I think this is a very relevant discussion that's been on a lot of people's minds, and we're going to dive into not just a couple different things I think are important to dive into with Doug while we've got him, is not only what the future of entertainment and events looks like post COVID-19, but also we've been doing a lot of work with entertainers in crisis and community messaging and understanding what are some elements that have been really effective there, and thinking through how to leverage some non-traditional channels for communicating. To getting messages out, to getting the community to rally around a need or a concept. So we'll dive into a little bit of that, and then really focus on, I think, the event space. And Doug, you've touched all these areas significantly. So I'm excited to introduce Doug Johnson, who is the president and executive producer of Entertainment Plus Productions. I cannot give Doug enough justice on everything that he has touched in his very vast background and experience. So Doug, I'm going to kind of turn it to you to give everyone who may not know you or E Plus a little bit of a tour of your background and what exactly it is that you all do on a I should say pre-COVID basis, right?
That's right. Thank you, Greg. Hello, everyone. So Entertainment Plus Productions really I would call it my baby, my child, and I treat it like it is a child, and sometimes it listens and sometimes it doesn't. But the best thing about what I get to do is I get to do what I love. And the love of the business came early. Even growing up in Alabama, I grew up in a town 1 mile square with 7 churches out in the country, y'all. And I used to talk like that because that's how I grew up. But I grew up in the church playing the piano because boys in Alabama did not dance. And I went to college thinking I'd be a computer programmer. And we all know the song, Wind Beneath My Wings. Well, in life, I think we have to have people in our life that let us know, hey, you actually have wings. So I had some amazing people. I was in Sigma Chi fraternity, and a wonderful man named Jack Morton really helped groom and wake me up to, you can get out of the pit and not just be a piano player. And I grew from there, and I went to Atlanta, and I worked at Six Flags Over Georgia, and my family came from Alabama, and they were all like, well, when'd you learn to do that stuff? Well, by the grace of God, I was born with a little bit of talent, and it just nurtured, and I got to learn how to dance and sing and put it all together. I left Atlanta after doing lots of shows at the Alliance Theater. I did a show in California with my buddy Greg Louganis. He was the prince in a show called Cinderella. And going to California, I should have never looked back. I loved being here, and I've always been doing choreography and directing, but I learned as a choreographer, you don't really have a lot of power. So you're doing great choreography and suddenly you're wearing lime green jumpsuits, or they're lighting the show terribly. So I tried to listen and learn throughout my entire career of, what are you doing? That's lighting. Show me what are you doing. So I try to grow and learn with the process through television and film, corporate events and shows that either I was a participant in, or maybe I was a choreographer or a director for, just so I could build my army and build my education, so I'd have a great point of view. So now I'm very blessed that when I look at entertainment, when I look at a show, I see it in 360 degrees and have not only a producer point of view, but I can also have a talent point of view. And I swore when I crossed over to the dark side of producing that I would never have producer amnesia. We all have a boss, no matter what our jobs are, and people that yell and scream at you and then want you to go be great. What fun is that? So I promised that I would have a company who felt nurtured. and they felt creative that every voice can be heard. I call the show The Baby Too, so that everyone can feed the baby, so that the show can grow up like it's been surrounded by aunts and uncles and not just one myopic thought. Yes, I come up with a bunch of crazy ideas, but I don't want bobbleheads around me. I want people that can respectfully argue and tell me why either I've lost my mind or maybe their idea is better or broader. And so we all work together in a loving, respectful way that creates something quite wonderful. And again, I'm very blessed to get to do what I love to do and make some money for that. No thanks to 2020, but the end is near. So very excited about that, Greg.
That's excellent. And so, very interesting fact about you. You were in a very popular movie, Sweet Home Alabama. Am I right?
Right? Yes. How poignant. So a great friend of mine in Atlanta, Karen Beyer, she was the head choreographer, and she asked me to come and be her assistant. So I flew to Georgia, and for 9 days we worked on Sweet Home Alabama. I got to teach Reese Witherspoon how to two-step, and the movie kept extending, and sadly Karen had to go on to another project, so I got to take over as lead choreographer. And if you ever watch Sweet Home Alabama, there's something called the fish fry. Side story, I looked cute. I was in the movie too. I had brought my own cowboy gear, and at the time of the 90s, I had a country group called the Midnight Cowboys, and we performed everywhere. We were on the Donnie Marie show. It was crazy. So I was done from head to toe in my cute cowboy gear. And the costumer, for whatever reason, thought I was too cute. So she pulled me aside, and all the dancers I had sort of helped and learned and hired them. So when I came back, they were all like, "Oh, Doug." So if you watch the movie and you look at some deranged, crazy looking UPS driver that's flying by in this awful brown, that would be me. But it still happens. I still make a little, I call it mailbox money. It still comes our way. So every time I flip the channels, I'm like, I'm making money. So
that's awesome. I swear every time I get together with Doug, I find some new and exciting story that comes from your background. So it's every time we get together, there's something new I learn about you. It's super exciting.
Coming from the south, y'all.
Doug, talk to me a little bit about, and I think for everyone who's joining us, what types of entertainment production activations, were you doing pre-COVID? I mean, I know you have shows on cruise ships all over the world. You've got huge engagements in Hollywood. You've got huge corporate events and all over the world, frankly. If you can just paint a little landscape of what types of productions that you all have been working on, and what you do on what types of shows and meetings, events, etc. you guys work on.
Absolutely. So we became a corporation in 2001. And even at the beginning, I knew that I did not want to be defined as a corporate event company or as a cruise ship company or as a social company. I always just wanted to be an entertainment company, and whatever that meant. So if you need that little dose of wow, then I'm your guy. We're your company. And yes, we're very, very blessed to still, and they're finally starting to come back. We have cruise ships around the world. We work on some theme park things around the world, corporate events, social events. For the King of Saudi Arabia, we opened his Western College. So there are things that we do that I can talk about. And there's a list as long as my body of NDA events for every celebrity in Hollywood. In fact, we're doing one tonight that I can't talk about. But even in the middle of this, we're trying to find small, intimate, safe things that can happen. But we've been very blessed to be a go-to company. And on our website, I sort of say when princes and kings and CEOs and presidents want to wow their audiences, they reach out to us. So when I pick up the phone, I sort of never know sometimes who's going to be on the other end. And it's, again, coming from a four-room house with no bathroom in Alabama, it's been a great, great journey.
And you've also done work with like movie premieres in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard. You've done large scale, again, meetings, parties for casino organizations, big companies, conferences for big companies at massive scale.
Las Vegas has been a sort of a second home to us. We have a full residency in Las Vegas, and the MGM Corporation has been like a second family to us. We started producing New Year's Eve at Bellagio in 2001. And for 20 years, we've been doing up to 4, 5, 6 gigantic hundreds of performers at each New Year's property. A little bit different this year, but in most years, there are multiple properties that we're doing. We've also traveled around the world with MGM Corporation for events in Shanghai and Venice and just some incredible things. We also work a lot with corporate America, a company that you may or may not know named Beachbody. If you're working out, you know Beachbody, Hip Hop Abs, 21 Day Fix. So we started with them about 10 years ago at a small hotel in downtown LA. And now we're doing superdomes and stadiums around the country. This year we're back in St. Louis. Come on, vaccine. But yeah, again, our roster of clients, we also produce for Disney. I've got to produce and direct lots of different things for them. So we have events and shows that you can bring your children to, and then we do naughty burlesque that you should not bring your children to, and kind of everywhere in between. So it's a good thing.
That's super. Something I forgot to tee up at the beginning of this, for those of you that are dialed in with us, feel free to use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen if there's questions as we go, something that sparks interest to you. Feel free to drop your questions there, and we'll work them in as we go through our time together. So laying a little foundation of how Doug and I got to know each other, and I'll start kind of our next line of questions around this. You know, the pandemic certainly hit a lot of businesses very hard. I know your business was pretty dramatically impacted by cruise ships shutting down, corporate events coming to a halt. You know, any time with people gathering, entertainment in itself was completely devastated. Even in my practice, saw a lot of just a pause as employees of large organizations are being furloughed, let go through all this. So, for a lot of us, business did come to a pause. And I remember watching a lot of the news stories that were coming out around COVID, and this is back in May, June, when masks are just starting to get very prominent in the headlines and mandating that. I remember having a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, Lenny Tallarico, who I called on a very last minute, late night. Hey, I called Lenny. I said, we should do something cool to help support all this COVID messaging. I'm like, with all the political dialogue out there that's really unnecessary around some of the safety tools that we need people to adopt to be safe. I said, we should do something funky. Like, Lenny, let's go do a mask fashion show in front of the Vegas sign with all the strip performers and entertainers. And Lenny's like, that's awesome, but I'm in quarantine. I can't leave the house. I'm not going to be no help, but you need to meet Doug Johnson. And Lenny connected us immediately. And what was it? 2 days later, we did the fashion show in front of the Vegas sign that made international news, and still actually is popping up on international newspapers, websites, stories, etc. Which, again, I still can't believe we got that done in less than 2 days. So that's where this started. And certainly turned into, I don't know how many more activations, Doug, have we done together since then? 10 plus?
Yes.
Again, all, donated time, resources, voluntary in order to help the greater fight against COVID. So, in each of those activations, leveraging the entertainment community in order to get a message out. So I want to start real quick on this topic of leveraging, a non-traditional channel or pool of people in order to help inspire a message across communities. So, thinking back to that first phone call, Doug, when I'm like, hey, here's this crazy idea. What was your biggest motivation to say, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Like, I want to collaborate on this dialogue, and totally makes sense to leverage entertainers. What really stood out to you to want to dive into that pathway?
Well, I think for all of us, we feel a little helpless because I'm not a scientist. I can't cure COVID. I can't wave the magic Harry Potter wand and make us all get back to work tomorrow. So how could I step in? What could I do? So from my crazy treasure chest, I'm like, okay, creative, okay, talent, okay, costuming, let's go. And when we reached out to talent, would you be interested? It was a unanimous, yes, of course, let's go, because we are ready. The entertainment community is so ready to do what we love to do, to get back, to help people lighten the mood, make them feel better about themselves. But in the and to chip away politics from this discussion, just about wearing a mask, putting it on to help each other. Safety, of course, all those things to keep people safe from dying, from being sick. But also, if you loved entertainment, if you loved sports, if you love music and everything that goes with it, then this is the way that we get back. If we can just get this thing under control and keep the numbers down, then governors and mayors aren't going to be shutting restaurants and entertainment venues down. So it was a sort of a no-brainer for us how we could leverage the things that we can touch. And in 2 days, we got the crazy together and we sort of kicked ass there in front of the Vegas sign with so many, probably every single show in Las Vegas sent a representative for us. And yeah, we kind of blew the barn doors open and let the world know that we're still here and that we want to help. So,
which spun into doing a very similar event in Los Angeles, New York, Nashville, back to Vegas twice, and then Vegas and Reno. It turned into a national tour for a bit, which was exciting. Why do you think? And again, each of these activations, I mean, we did it with the full intent of just helping get a message out to the community, right, and to help. You know, if there's 1% of the population that would start thinking about wearing a mask a little bit more often, or thinking about doing the right thing because they, saw or were inspired by something, that was the goal. Why do you think we, when the community started seeing these messages and we saw how much each of these activations started getting momentum and getting, visibility and getting the story out to people, why do you think that was such a what was it, the entertainment community that made that happen? What was the driver of that story really blowing up in regards to people wanting to engage with it and see it?
I think people saw something that was universal, something that had nothing to do with either their local government or the Washington government telling people what to do, but they saw things that they could relate to. They saw things that they understood, be it Cirque or Chips or showgirls or whatever it might be. They're like, wow, politics aside, these are people, wow. And we also all held signs that said, I mask up for, and some people were like, my grandmother, my job, my people, my entertainment, whatever it would be. But it reminded people in a non-political way why we were doing this and why it's important. So I think it detoxed this whole situation, and they saw something that was pretty, and they were reminded of entertainment and what it used to be before the insanity of COVID. And I think it really registered in their hearts that we need to do something. And as simple as putting on a mask, we all can do, and not feel quite so helpless, like I was saying before.
Yeah, the entertainers are the folks that everyone goes to get that pause or that break from their everyday, right? To go be transformed or transcend into someone else's world or some other environment in order to clear your head and kind of move outside of your normal for a minute. And to kind of have that connection point back to, here's the people that I use to kind of just get myself out of this mindset for a moment. I think was a great connection as well. I want to jump to, and I know this was really exciting for you and also challenging. So talking about the shows that you have on cruise ships, so the first cruise ship to go back into service in the world was out of Singapore, and your shows were on board that cruise ship, if I'm correct. So talk to us about what it was like bringing, again, there's cruise ships still sitting, what they're calling them ghost ships right now, sailing around, almost empty, just waiting for the moment to bring everyone back on board. What was it like, first cruise ship now through this pandemic to re-welcome guests back on board and provide that entertainment? What was different? What was that process like for you guys?
Well, the thing that was the most clear is the Singapore government and mandates. There was no pushing back. It was this or zero. It was this or no sail. So we flew our choreographers to Florida for 2 weeks, and with our crew, musical directors, all of that, everyone was in supervised quarantine for 2 weeks. Then they had a COVID test. Then they flew to Singapore, another COVID test. Then they were on the ship for 2 weeks, still in quarantine. So there was no joke about that. So we also used our time wisely while we were on the ship. Our choreographers, Kevin and Marcel Wilson, through Zoom, all the cast was now on board, also in quarantine. So we were as smart as we possibly could be, and we used that time to teach choreography. So finally, we got released from prison, and we were able to get in the theater and get to it. But even through that process, the government had a clear plan of wearing a mask, what is and what is not possible throughout our show, which is called Sequins and Feathers, a big sort of modern showgirl show. There were moments where male dancers would jump off and go out into the audience, or people would walk through the audience to the stage. There could be zero audience participation. There could be no one in the audience. So we had to re-choreograph some things. And we have 6 singers in the show, and the government would only allow 5 singers on stage at one time. So we have numbers that were just singer driven. So we had to re-choreograph, relight, restage entire numbers to accommodate the 5-person rule from them. And throughout the process, it wasn't too crazy, but as with all government things, today it's turned left, tomorrow it wasn't quite turned right, or there were a few new hiccups that we had to sort of pivot and change a bit. But all in all, the show rose, and we're out entertaining people again. It's a huge success. The Singapore audience really is sort of a destination anywhere. They don't stop at any port. They go out to sea, and then they're right back to Singapore. Everyone is tested before they get on board. Everyone's tested again when they get off board. So we're just trying to do all we can to show that it can be done, so that other cruise ships can also launch and we can all get back to it.
So how did the cast and how did the crew react to, I mean, I know the government mandated quarantines are certainly very difficult. And I mean, in a lot of countries, you're literally sitting in your room for 14 days. How did they adapt to, that process? I think, you guys did a great job innovating and thinking about how do we leverage this time that we have to get through, and innovating ways to be forward thinking and actually make progress on your implementation there. But when you start thinking about changing the show elements and having to adjust based on those restrictions, how did the cast and the crew react to that process? Were they excited for the fact that they get to go do their craft again? Was there stress and challenge just based on the dynamics? How did they react to that process?
I think the best thing that the carrot in front, the cherry on top, was you knew in 2 weeks we would be in the theater. So even though they were in quarantine for 2 weeks, again, they got to see other people. They were physically active every day. There were different meetings within the cast. There were different meetings within the choreography and the team. So people got to experience at least, hi person, I see you, I'm talking to you, and I know I'm going to see you in, counting down 14, 13, 12, 11, I'm going to see you soon. So they knew there was an end to it. It wasn't just 14 days and we'll see. It was 14 days and then we would absolutely start. So that was very, very helpful to them. And again, everyone was still trying to get in shape. They were eating properly because meals were brought to them. They were all doing, sometimes they were doing sort of Zoom yoga or Zoom workouts together, just trying to be creative, to have a little personal touch with each other and also get acquainted again. So it was lovely.
That's great. That's super. Thinking through, I want to touch back on, some of the other events that you've done. You've done a lot of international work. I see a friend of mine on the webinar. What's up, Diane Brown? So this is aimed at Diane, who very heavy background in protocol and diplomacy and understanding how cultural elements tie into what you do. Talk to me a little bit about, you've done engagements in Dubai, you've done engagements for international clientele domestically. What types of considerations are you thinking about as an event designer, producer, when you do have an element of cultural differences or beliefs that play into a mindset and a rating of satisfaction, frankly, of the experience, as to not to offend someone or cross a line in regards to beliefs, culture, etc. What kind of goes through your mind as you tackle some of those international types of engagements?
Well, whenever we're doing an international audience, such as like you were saying, Dubai. Sure, we did the first cruise ship ever. Sorry, 2019, we did the first cruise ship ever that was in India. So when I was prepping shows, every time we're in a new market, I always hire a foreign consultant that I send the music to, I send costuming to make sure, it's of course aesthetically pleasing to me, but something that's sexy in America and something that's sexy in Dubai are way two different things. So we always want to get an actual cultural correspondent to help us, to give us the do's and the don'ts, and be careful and what colors are symbolic of death or symbolic of life, or you don't want to. It's not an area that you want an oops in, because you can't erase it. So when we were doing the opening of the Western University, the Western Tech University for the King of Saudi Arabia, especially in those markets, you can't afford an oops. And we were doing a shadow art show, and our shadow art show, we're in body stockings or a really tight bra and a really small trunk, and we roll around on each other. Well, we're in Saudi Arabia. You really, really, really want to be careful. And so their actual protocol person, we weren't doing anything until that person came and watched rehearsal, so that no other eye could possibly be offended or possibly have any, but we'd already filmed it in America, but we wanted them to see it in person for last minute blessings. So people were freaking out in a great way, because it was the first time ever that men and women had been on stage together, because we were behind a scrim in silhouette, and it was allowed. And people were in tears that they were witness to this. So it was a great heartfelt thing to get to be a part of, and kind of make a little bit of history for ourselves. But we always want to be sensitive. And even in America, we try to, what's okay in California and what's okay in Georgia may be two complete different things. So we always want to be open. We want to hear dialogue, so that we get it right the first time. How about that?
That's perfect. And even just thinking now domestically, state to state, like you just mentioned, the different guidelines and regulations now that are going to be set in, for safety and whatnot, are going to differ from state to state. We've seen that recently. Let's talk a little bit about the future of, what happens once the vaccine is, widely out there. We start to see things coming back, people engaging again. What are your predictions on changes that you see happening, maybe short term, and then if any longer term changes that happen to the event, the entertainment industry as we roll out of this?
Well, I think forward thinking is the way of the future always. We can't just return to the way it used to be. And why would we? Can't we do better? Can't we grow? Can't we learn from our mistakes? And I'm always trying to push boundaries, even within myself, so that I'm shining it up as best I could. In times gone by, when I was performing, men and women changed in the same dressing room. And when I became a producer, men and women still changed in the same dressing room. And then we put up a small thing in the corner so that if you wanted privacy, you could have privacy. Well, in today's climate, no more. There's a female dressing room and there's a male dressing room. So when we look to the future for COVID, this entire year, even when we were doing our events together, we were beyond strict about having COVID test, wearing a mask, temperature checks, hand sanitizing, social distancing, even when we were doing our shows and doing choreography, because we want to protect people. We've flown people for aerial work forever, 30 foot, 40 foot in the air, and harming people, killing people are not really what we're all about. The same thing here for COVID. We've got to treat our performers like our family. We need to be treating the guest in the audience like our family. The other event that we did together, Greg, for the governor, we used the music of We Are Family, because that really is what we are universally when it comes down to it. And we would just treat each other like family. This whole process would be different and it would be better. And in the future, we are going to continue, I think, to wear masks for rehearsals. I don't know if we'll be wearing masks on stage once we've all had a COVID test, once we've all had a vaccine. You know, we will get back to performing, but protocols of temperature checking, are you ill? What are you ill with? The flu. You know, we in the past never wanted a stomach virus to spread throughout. That can shut a cast down as well, you know. So I just think the hypersensitivity to illness, I think we're there and it's never going to go away. And spreading it apart a little bit more on stage, it's going to go down. But I don't think it's ever I think there are going to be new protocols for the future.
It's funny, I was watching a video yesterday on what are some of the things that we used to do that you can't believe that we actually used to do after you've had the lens of the pandemic, right? And someone was like, I can't believe we used to go to a bowling alley and you know, put your fingers in the bowling ball that God knows how long it's been there. And then you go and grab popcorn or a piece of pizza right away or nachos and, you know, eat it. Everyone's like, oh my God, like, how did we do that? So I think there's going to be a lot of just rethinking, and you know, the first time that we're all out and about socially around each other again, and the first person that sneezes, people are going to have a little bit of a PTSD around you know, just everything that the thought process we've had for how long. So it'll be an adjustment process. Do you think people are going to be willing, you know, customers, attendees to live entertainment to go into large stadium types of environments right away? Do you think that the pathway to get there is through more smaller, more intimate types of entertainment or engagement? You know, do you think now's the time to innovate in order to build a sense of confidence back up in the public to go back to a show? I think that's a huge debate right now is, you know, are people willing to go into a massive stadium right away and go watch a game? Or do you think, you know, we've got to think through kind of onboarding people back into, you know, those environments and showing them that it can be safe and it's okay?
Well, I think for, you know, we're all individuals and there are still people sort of shut in their homes that will go nowhere. But I think a vast majority of Americans are ready, just like we in the entertainment community, we are ready to get back to it. I'm praying that we get the COVID vaccine rolling faster. There seems to be even more, like Johnson & Johnson, I think has one that's about to be approved. I think as we get into it and the pace picks up, and if we can get more people having the vaccine, I think we will be able to have bigger. I still think up until then, we've got to be careful. And I think even with vaccines, I think mask wearing, like in theaters, are still maybe going to be there for a while. I don't know how long, but I do think we're going to still have to have some protocols, temperature checks, all those things to sort of see where we are. But I'm optimistic that sooner rather than later, we're going to be able to come together, and not with, you know, the 50-person mandate, but maybe with the 50% mandate or even the 75% mandate.
I'll ask you this. This is a curveball question I did not prepare you for. As I get you ready for that, again, anyone who may have questions as we're going here, please feel free to submit them now. We'll get into audience Q&A here in a second. Doug, what's your opinion of the restaurants and showrooms? You know, when a lot of places opened for reduced occupancy, they put mannequins or dolls or stuffed animals in chairs in restaurants at tables, and some of them looked like real people. Some of them were almost like creepy from a that standpoint. And some of them were, you know, overly decorated in order to be very clear as to what purpose they were serving. Do you see that happening? And what's your opinion on filling seats with additional, what I would say, experiential things to look at, engage with?
So I'm going to sidebar and come back around. We do all the technical and all the entertainment for the Fashion Show Mall in Las Vegas. And this entire 2020, we've been doing virtual. I appreciate virtual. I'm grateful for virtual, that at least we can employ some people and get it out there. But there is nothing like one-on-one experiences with audiences. When you do something and you hear the audience respond, be it laughter or applause, it's almost the endorphin of being high. It's such a wonderful thing that you're giving, and the fact that you're giving and you're getting an instant response is a win-win. However, in the virtual, when you look out and there's nothing but a camera, not so much. So at least when you look out and, like, I think it's Jimmy Kimmel, who maybe had some cardboard cutouts in his audience, at least you see some smiley faces and a reminder of what's to come. And at least they're trying something different. You know, people that are kind of going out there, a mannequin, or if every fifth person was a real person, why not?
That's you know, I think that's a really great point you actually just mentioned about, I mean, majority of the events or activations that we did, they were not open to the public. They were not advertised in advance. They were completely pop-up surprise this is happening, and it was only to, frankly, the media or the storytelling audience to help get the message out, so we could keep it very safe and isolated. And it was certainly, I remember the fashion show was the first one that we did, where you've got all these performers coming down the red carpet, you know, totally doing their thing and high energy, but then there's a very limited amount of people, and you don't have the camera crews from the TV stations clapping because of sound, and they're, you know, want the quality of the shots. So it was almost like silence. Yeah, and it's funny. And when we had microphones, we're like, you know, give a round of applause.
It's so like when
it was us.
It's like when a comedian tells a joke, if there's no one to laugh, you know,
Yep.
if the trees cut in the forest, doesn't make a sound. And when you're performing just for a silent camera, you know, we all do it for film and TV sometimes, but again, in the crowd response at a sporting event or whatever, when that roar happens, you know, it's like for all of us, we need that little machine when we're feeling down on our nightstand that we can lift it up and there's a big roar of applause, that standing ovation.
Yep.
We need the standing ovation box to get us motivated, you know?
Yep, exactly. That's great. What I got one question, then I'll turn to audience Q&A here. What advice, you know, those who are working in the entertainment industry right now, those who may be in meetings and events industry, those who may be performers, whatever it may be, there's so many folks that are in this space. What advice do you have for them at the current time, knowing, you know, it's still tough out there, as we, you know, look forward here and look to the hopeful future?
For me personally, my survival has been staying creative with whatever that means. Writing shows that we have no buyer for, creating some new experience that there is no potential yet for it to be sold. If day to day we can keep the creative juices going, for me, that's been my savior. That I'm getting up, I'm taking a shower, I'm dressing as if I have work. I'm not just, not every day, you know, we all need those couch days too, you know, a little therapeutic time. But I do think in the rhythm of what we know, it's so important to keep it going and reaching out to our friends, reaching out to our colleagues and bouncing ideas off of each other for the future. What are we going to be doing? And keeping the promise and the thought of what's yet to come alive and not getting bogged down. Because yes, it is sad. You know, overnight, 2020 was going to be possibly my biggest year in the history of my company. And then March 10th, you know, like all of us, nothing. I just think trying to keep the glass half full, trying to keep hopeful, trying to keep positive, and leaning on people that are inspirations and that are like-minded, that can cheerleader us up and keep us in check. And if we just need to whine every now and then, hey, I'm there as well. We need a little comfort. We need a little hand holding. We need a little hug every now and then from our friends too. But staying positive, staying strong, and staying safe is most important.
That's great. Question came in from one of the social channels that we're streaming on. So when you think about creating a new show, or a new concept, what do you use for kind of creativity or innovation? How does that concept come to your mind? Is it something you may have been inspired by? What's your how do you typically start from ground zero on building out a concept?
So depending on who the client is or what that's going to be, I subscribe to probably 6 fashion magazines, Vogue, Cosmo, Bazaar, whatever. And my method, again, this is why I'm a little crazy. I don't read anything in those magazines, but I flip pages. And when I see something that's inspiring, I rip it out. So I have folders of different types of fashion, different types of architecture, things that seem interesting and forward thinking. So when I need to kind of get, okay, I'm going to be doing something for a cruise ship or a theme park or a Vegas show or whatever, I pull down one of those folders. I look back through those inspiration photos that kind of feed me a little bit, that kind of get me hyped up. And then I start so that I feel like I've had a nice gourmet meal of inspiration and of what's current and what's future. And I kind of get rolling from there.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Doug, wrapping this up, I'm kind of final question for you. Once all of this crazy is done, it's beside us, we're moving forward. What are you personally looking forward to the most in the soon, hopefully to be post-pandemic world?
I'm looking forward to people. You know, I love this crazy business and it's great to make money at it. But most importantly, it's great that it brings people like Greg Chase into your life. That people that we have clients now for over, 10, 15 years, people that become your family. And I'm ready to see those people in person. I'm ready to wrap my arms around them in person and to say, hi, friend, I've missed you. Hi, friend, I love you. And it's great, again, in the meanwhile, to have a little Zoom or an elbow bump and all of that. But I'm ready to embrace people once again. And I can't wait for that because that's the, this is the best part. Each other. That's what show business brings us. Yep. So thanks for the family, Greg.
Of course. And I want to go on the record formally and just say, how much I've enjoyed the work that we have done together over the last, I would say year here now. Even most recently, we just got done getting Santa vaccinated before Christmas, right? And these relationships that may be non-traditional, given the focus of my business is very different than the work we've been doing. You had the Santa suit, we had different elements to help get another community message out. It's just great, the thinking through how you can leverage relationships and friendships and even non-traditional business connections to make something really powerful and really impactful happen.
That's right. I always say for my own business, I don't care whose business card is on top. I just want to do great work and not being afraid of the competition. It's okay. It's okay to share ideas and to be human beings. Let's all just elevate each other so that we can really push boundaries and not be mediocre. Life's too short.
Completely. Well, Doug, thank you for your time. I know you are getting ready to kick off your birthday weekend there in Hawaii. So happy early birthday. And hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Hawaii. Thank you to all those that have joined us. Really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.